So for this project, we're going to play around with the pixel array, and we're going to get colors, and we're going to draw ellipses to the screen, and the size is going to be based upon the brightness of the color values that we find. So we're going to kind of randomize an x and a y coordinate. We're going to find that point within the array, gather the color data, and then make this image to the screen. So it's kind of growing slowly over time. Each cycle through, it's picking another random point, finding the color data, drawing the ellipse to the screen. So it takes a while for it to kind of build up. It kind of generates over time. But it's a simple example, and I kind of just want to show, we'll let this grow a little bit more. Actually, we'll see this a little bit more at the end. You can see kind of how it's drawing now. But let's take a look at the code. So here it is, and we have an image. I have one variable which is going to be the size, and that's going to help determine the ellipse size, and I'm doing that based on a brightness tracking, and so we'll see the conditional statements for that. Everything here looks pretty familiar here in our setup, and we have an image that's loaded. We're not going to draw the image to the screen. We're just going to pull the color data and then draw the ellipses based on that color data for those pixels. So here in our draws, we're going to be doing most of the work. The first part here, the comment I have is, generate this random x and y coordinate. Make sure it's in the bounds of the image. So I just have this variable of x. I'm casting it to an integer because the random function wants to return a float. And here's the sort of dot operator again that we're seeing within arrays. Since the image is actually an object, up here the p image is actually an object based upon an image class within processing. We have these sort of dot operators that allow us to connect methods to it. So this is actually returning the width of that image and the height of this image. I'm just using the dot to call that. And this is the variable name that I've set up here for that image. So it's getting an x and a y within anywhere between 0 and the width, and anywhere between 0 and the height. Okay, so it gets those, and then this is the formula here that's going to allow us to find that pixel in the one-dimensional array that the pixel array is. So it's a variable. I'm just using location, and our formula here is you're taking the y value, multiplying it by the width, and then adding the x to it. Okay, so whatever it gets from whatever these variables are from this random function, whatever gets returned, gets set into, it'll come up with a number, and that'll be in the location. We'll use that as our index in the pixel array. Okay? So here, this is important. Here's the function that I'm calling that's loading the pixel data. It's getting the color data ready for us to use. So just by calling the load image here, it just sets the memory. It's not actually setting the color data. It's not until we actually run this load pixels function that they become accessible and usable for us. And so once I have that set, I just got 3 more variables here, an R, G, and a B. I'm calling red, green, blue, and here is the image.pixels. So calling all of the pixels within the image at that specific location. So here's our pixel array, and it's finding that location. So what is the red value? What is the green value? What is the blue value for that specific pixel that's been chosen randomly? And we found out what that location is in the array, and we've set that variable here. Okay? So those are good to go. We're setting that into a fill. So here they are, RGB. I've set a little transparency in there, so because there's going to be overlap depending on the size. And that's just sort of arbitrary right now. That can be changed aesthetically as we look through this. And then I'm doing these conditional statements just to test for the brightness, and I'm setting that p size, again, that variable, that global variable I had up at the top. Here it is, which will set the size of our ellipse depending on how bright the pixels are. So when the R or the green or the blue is greater than 200. It's going to be the largest size here at 20. If they're 150, they'll be at 15. All else smaller than 150 is going to take it down to 10. So again, I can change the P sizes here depending on how things look. And then finally here is where the ellipse finally gets drawn to the screen. So the X and the Y are those random points that we generated all the way back up here. And the size here is determined again by our conditional statement here, and the fill will have the color value for what will get set into there. So let's take a look at it again. I'm going to go into the present mode, and you'll see this kind of get built up. So the color values, depending on those pixels, get drawn to the screen, and this takes a while, but over time the image finally starts appearing. It's kind of a pointillism effect. It's kind of interesting that it kind of builds up, that you can't really tell what the image is. It's certainly blurred out by using the large ellipse, so kind of low res. It's interesting. I'm not against it. One of the things I don't like about it is that the random is going to, there's no control over whether it picks the same numbers again. So at some point, theoretically, it could pick the same pixel and then kind of redraw that to the screen. It would be nice to draw all of the pixels once and not sort of continually overlapping them. Would be one of the things that I'd want to fix with it, so it's not so randomized. It can be a random order that they get drawn to the screen, but I'm thinking that once it's drawn, to move on and find one that hasn't been drawn yet and do that. And so I think I'm going to try to do that. We'll try to figure that out maybe in the next video. I'll let this run a little bit more, and so you can kind of see the effects from it. Kind of slowly moving over in time. My computer is definitely stretching here. It's taking a while to do this, but it's there's something interesting in it. I'm not 100% against it, but I'm not 100% with it yet. So I'm trying to see what other effects we can maybe make with it. So let's try that. Let me try the next step and see if we can make something more interesting happen.